Welcome back to Rockstock Channel. It is Thursday, September 25th, and we are back for the fourth time with Graham Harris, the chairman of Surge Battery Metals. Surge Battery Metals trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, ticker symbol NILI, as well as the US OTC, ticker symbol NILIF. Surge is focused on sediment lithium exploration in Nevada. The company published a PEA with strong economics in June, which was the subject of our last video together on June 27th with Graham. Since then, Surge announced a significant joint venture deal and a small capital raise, among other developments, which Rodney will dig into in a minute. As a reminder, Rodney and I are advisors to and hold equity interests in Surge Battery Metals. But we are not, of course, financial advisors, and nothing in this video should be considered investment advice. Please do your own research and read the disclaimer at the end of this video. You may recall that I've known Graham since around 2016 when he was the chairman of and RK Equity was an advisor to Millennial Lithium. Millennial developed the Pastos Grandes brine project in Argentina to a definitive feasibility study and was then acquired by Lithium Americas for over $400 million. Lithium Americas was very much in the news lately, and Surge stock surged yesterday in sympathy. Lithium Americas doubled in price on reports that it was in talks with the U.S. government about potentially restructuring their $2.3 billion loan, which could include the government taking an equity stake in the company in a similar way that it did MP Materials. Surge Battery Metals stock today is about 33.5 Canadian cents, down 7% year to date. Its market cap's about 60 million or Canadian or 45 million US dollars, and it has a cash balance following the recent capital raise of about 7 million Canadian dollars. You can follow Surge on X at Surge Battery and also on LinkedIn. And you can find out more information and sign up for their email list at their website, surgebatterymetals.com. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsor, USCF Investments, innovators in commodity ETFs for nearly 2 decades. To learn more about USCF, check out our inaugural episode with the CEO, a link for which is in the show notes, and visit uscfinvestments.com. And as always, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to Rockstock Channel. And also be sure to follow at RK Equity Rocks on X. And with that, welcome back, Graham, to Rockstock Channel. Rodney will dig in with a bunch of questions from here.
All right. Well, thanks, Howard. Thanks for having us back. And timing's good today to catch up on a bunch of things. So pleasure to be here again, Rodney.
Great to interview again, Graham. So following our last interview where we covered your PEA on the Northern Nevada Lithium Project, you've identified significant amounts of rubidium and cesium at the project. Can you provide some color on those results and what further testing is being carried out?
Yeah, originally, Rodney, the first 2 years of drilling, we didn't test for the critical metals. I mean, it's expensive, as you know, to do these assay analysis over every element. But on the last ones, we did notice some high rare earths and critical minerals, and we tested for them in the last batch of assay results from last year, and they were quite substantial. So we're evaluating now whether we want to continue to go back and re-assay some of the original drill holes for cesium and rubidium, or we'll just include that in the 9-hole drill program, which commenced today. And I think that's more likely. And we'll see if we get the same elevated levels. And from there, we'll determine if we want to continue further with the analysis.
But is it fair to say that if the numbers are good, that could be a good byproduct revenue for you?
It's fair to say, but it's early to say. I mean, as you know, it's the extraction, whether the cost of extraction is greater than or equal to the value of the commodity. I mean, these commodities trade thousands of dollars per gram, so they're very, 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 very valuable. We'll just have to do the analysis. Let's get the results, and then we'll probably do some work, I think, in the PFS here, looking at some of the separation and see if it's worthwhile to try to extract them.
And beyond that announcement, you also announced that you've bought the remaining 50% of the M3M Texas Spring claims that are contiguous to the NNLP. What optionality does this open up for the company?
Yeah, that took a long time, Rodney, to get through the exchange. It was over a year and a half in the making because we shared a common corporate secretary. So anytime there's an insider that belongs to both companies, this deal was announced 2 years ago. And it took that long to consummate the transaction to get it through the TSX, but it does greatly expand the land package, just like the other recent announcements we made on the land with Salmon River and Evolution. But as far as M3, I mean, they had contiguous ground to the west and south, and optionality that we don't see any mineralization on those grounds, but it does allow us to position, some of the mining infrastructure, not necessarily on our deposits, but on a benign ground that we now control.
Right. And in early September, Surge signed an LOI with for long-term access to private land holdings and an MOU regarding water rights. What is the long-term objective of those agreements?
Well, from the get-go, we've always, there was a private land, 800 acres within the middle of our claim block, all our BLM claims. And we've always been working closely with Salmon River in terms of access to those lands, because they actually are some of the highest grade areas of the deposit, and it's probably where we'll put the starter pit, to be quite honest. Having Salmon River, I mean, originally when I got involved in this company, it was Salmon River owned the surface rights. The mineral rights beneath the surface rights were owned 75% by Evolution and 25% by two independent companies, the Wilkins family and Y3. And we set out to, get our foot in the door and did a deal with Y3 and the Wilkins to gain that 25% interest under Surge. And from there, we've got a toehold in that ground. And now you can see that over the last 2 years, we've worked very, very closely with Salmon River. It's not just the 800 acres on the private ground, Rodney, that's a concern for them. I mean, they're cattlemen. It's grazing rights for the whole area that, they want to, us to be cognizant of, and we are in negotiation with them. We've done a lot of work with them. The main thing, like I said, is grazing rights, and to that, it's water. They want water and grazing for their cattle. It's pretty simple. And we've done a lot of work, hydrological studies, to get them comfortable with what it is that we're trying to do here at Surge Battery, at the Nevada North Lithium Project. It's not like this thing's going to be built tomorrow and there's going to be a big hole in the ground and we're going to disperse all this cattle. So we've been very, very, worked very, very closely with them. And I think you can see from the last 2 years that they've allowed drilling access on the ground, that we've made a lot of headway. And one of the key components of the headway we made with them is they originally opposed our water rights application in Nevada. And like I said earlier, we've done a lot of work on the hydrological studies. We will continue to work very closely with them. We're not there to drain the basin of water. We will ensure that their cattle have adequate water and grazing. And I think we've come a long way. And that was a culmination of the LOI that we entered into, where they will remove their objection to the water rights, and we'll continue to work closely with them. And I think another, more proof in the pudding here is the fact that we started drilling today on the private lands. So we have an agreement in place to drill the first 5 holes on their lands. And I think, they're good people. We want to be good stewards, good neighbors. It's very important to us, and it's important to them. And we spent a lot of time building a relationship with Salmon River.
That's great. Thanks for that. You, as you mentioned previously, you recently announced the 9-hole drill program starting in the fall to provide data for the PFS. What is your estimated timeline for the completion of the drill program and the PFS?
Well, the drill program is going to be a lot quicker than the PFS for sure. I mean, we're rushing right now to get the 9 holes in before snowfall, and I think we will accomplish that. We didn't wait for the Evolution deal to close. We're pretty confident it's going to close, so we've gone ahead and funded the drill program in advance. If we had waited, we'd be waiting till the spring, and it would set this whole program back probably 6 to 9 months. So we expect to have the drilling done by, let's say, late October, early November. And then we can incorporate those assay results into the PFS. And the whole purpose is to, for the PFS, we have to move from inferred to some measured and indicated. And that's the purpose of this program. And I think, I'd just like to add too that, we're expecting some pretty good results from this program, because the 9 holes are targeted in the very high grade areas. That's where we're trying to infill the resource to M&A. So we are expecting some pretty good results. And I think from this drill program, what we hope to achieve is a bit of an overall bump in the grade, which will be important for the PFS and the economics going forward.
That's great. And just as an aside, Graham, what sort of depths will you drill down to in the program?
Well, Rodney, we're pretty confident in the resource and where it sits. I don't think we have to drill deeper because we think it continues. We know where the basin is. We're going to target the three layers that we've encountered lithium in to date. So we're drilling down to about 600 feet in total.
Okay.
Maximum depth.
Right. And then Howard touched on it, the big announcement last week, you signed a non-binding LOI with Evolution Mining to enter into a JV for the purposes of continuing the development of the project, and the initial focus of that, of course, being the PFS. Could you just please outline for us the terms of the LOI, such as the ownership structure post-deal, if it happens, what the due diligence is, and what needs to be completed before that JV becomes binding?
Yeah, Rodney, that deal's been like 2 years in the making. As I alluded to earlier, when I got involved in this company, I noticed this big gap in the middle, which was the private lands, and underneath there was mineral rights that were owned by somebody other than us, which was Evolution. And we've been in constant communication with Evolution over the last 2 years. They've had their geos down. I mean, funny enough, I met the Evolution people 2 years ago. Their market cap was $5 billion. I was rather impressed. Well, now it's 20 billion, so I'm even more impressed. They've been in a pretty hot gold market, and they're a very well capitalized Australian gold miner. Their goal is not to be a lithium miner. They've stated quite publicly to us that their goal is not to be in lithium mining, but they do want to monetize their asset and get value for it. They've spent a lot of time and money, engineers they've hired to evaluate this project. So I think, it culminated in when we put out the PEA, it was easy to identify what their mineral interest was. You take 75% of the mineralization that was on their ground, and that was really the basis of the JV that we formed. They've converted their mineral interest into 23% of the JV. And from that, they've agreed to fund a further $10 million for another 10%. So at the end of the day, the JV structure will be 67.5 Evolution, 32.5. 67.5 us, 32.5 Evolution. So we're just working through, as you're asking, what it's going to take, and we're pretty confident it's going to close. This is not a due diligence that they've just started. They've been doing due diligence for quite some time. It's really, we're getting tax advice on the structure right now as far as the JV, and that's really the final details, and we expect to have it closed by November 5th.
Okay, great. Thanks. That gives good info.
Actually, Rodney, before you begin, you mentioned Evolution was $5 billion when you started and $20 billion now. Evolution, when I saw that, I was just like, is that the Evolution Gold? Like Jake Klein founded, the chairman? Because RK Equity represented Evolution at its inception when it was like 100 million. It actually just raised $150 million through GMP to buy its first asset, and that was like some 10 or 12 years ago. So it's great to be affiliated with a legendary entrepreneur, and company like that. Just as an aside, that kind of popped out to me.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, Howard, and Jake. I've known Jake too. So I think, had we done nothing but just bought Evolution stock back when you met them and then when I met them, it's really pretty much that simple. And here we are working away on a lithium project and banging our heads against the wall. But they're good people. We're thrilled to have them as partners. It was the logical conclusion to what needed to be done to merge these mineral interests, so that in the future, if somebody came along, it's now one project, not having to deal with variables such as Salmon River, surface rights, Evolution, 75% mineral rights. Now we've consolidated all those pieces into the project, and it's taken a lot of work, but I think it's been worth it, and it's what needed to happen.
Sorry, you joke, Graham. Yes, Jake built a great company at 20 billion, but repeat performers, you are one as well. You've taken Millennial Lithium, as we discussed earlier, from the market cap, it is that Surge is today, to a $400 million sale. So that's a way to make money as well. And you've done it more than once.
This is harder though, much harder.
Well, maybe the result
Gold
will be
wasn't
bigger.
easy for that long.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
So, Graham, there was a condition in the JV process that required Surge to raise capital. Your recent announcement of a non-brokered placement suggests it was well received by investors. Who were the players who supported the raise?
Well, Rodney, just like when we raised money earlier in the spring, it's some of our key shareholders that stepped up. We got a call from a fund out of Toronto that wanted to, be in the space. Matter of fact, we turned that call down in August because we were negotiating the deal with Evolution. And then I said, just wait till I get it done. And then when it was done, we reached out and they put up half the funds. Our key shareholders put up the other half. And then we filled it, oversubscribed it with other interest that came in. So it's not exactly... the timing wasn't perfect. It would have been great if we had the LAC announcement out and then raise money on the back of that, but you can't foresee all these things happening. So it was good to have. Our requirement was to raise $3 million. We're going to close on 5 on October 5th, and that leaves us well funded because all we need to cover is our G&A. It's Evolution that's funding the PFS. That's more than enough to cover 2 to 3 years of G&A. So we're in good shape right now, and now it's just time to put the money in the project and get this PFS up and out.
Yes, I mean, the condition was 3. As you said, you've raised 5, so there's a good buffer there. And talking of the...
Yeah, I will say too, like, I assumed it was going to be a special warrant financing too that'd be tied to the close of the JV, but it wasn't. This thing's going to close with no tie into whether the JV actually closes. So this funding will close October 5th, well in advance of the JV. So that's important to note. There's no conditions on this funding.
That's good to know. And talking of the LAC share price jump, your share, as Howard said, surged 25%. Your thoughts on the US now looking to take an increasing number of direct equity stakes in US-based critical mineral companies?
Yeah, I think we sort of alluded to some of these, the potential for this happening in the space, is happening in the rare earths, and we were just hopeful it was going to happen in lithium, and now it looks like it will. It'd be interesting to see if they put a price floor on lithium like they did for some of the rare earths. That's going to be very interesting. But the fact that the government is supporting this and not just pulling the loan, which was the fear, if you remember yesterday, stock was down, LAC was down 20% or 17%, whatever it was, on the fear that the government was going to pull the loan. And then, 12 hours later, the exact opposite happened. They're coming in and supporting the project. So I think it's extremely important. I've always felt that a domestic lithium project is key here. So we're thrilled to be in Nevada, and we're hoping to attract some of the same attention that LAC had in terms of funding and being a viable option for lithium production in the U.S.
Viewers may recall that Lithium Americas was how I got into lithium, about 17 years ago as our first lithium client, Western Lithium, which merged with Lithium Americas, and hats off to the team. I hope it's as promising, the deal negotiation, as the market seems to believe it's going to be. Lithium Americas stock traded $1.5 billion worth of shares yesterday, which is equivalent to its market cap. So it's turned into a meme stock in a similar way that Piedmont did about 5 years ago when they signed a deal with Tesla, and the way MP Materials and also the metals company. So these U.S. assets, everyone wants to be in the U.S. But if the government is further supporting this with an equity stake, I mean, you are a lookalike project to Thacker Pass, right? And to the extent that the U.S., the former administration, Jigar Shah, has indicated that with lithium in particular, he saw a scope not just to reshore, but for the U.S. to become an exporter of lithium in the way that we turned around in oil and gas from being a net importer to net exporter. So to the extent that the government is supporting Nevada sediment, and that's a big project, Thacker Pass, and that could grow. but I would think that the rise in sympathy that Surge experienced yesterday, that momentum should continue over the course of the next couple of weeks and months, as the Trump administration has, in critical minerals, has really focused on everything but lithium, right? And here now, lithium. We've said it for weeks that as soon as they mention lithium or do anything in lithium, it could result in the bull market in lithium again, and it seems to be happening, but selectively. And we would encourage our viewers to, for Surge, you're still a relatively not well known, story in the larger space of the lithium space, but Evolution is a real partner. And you said you're basically $7 million. They're funding. You're fully funded to PFS. So like any kind of equity overhang is gone, at least until, that PFS milestone. Obviously you'll need to tick a lot more boxes from there. But anyway, it's exciting times. If there's, I don't know, Rodney, if you have more questions, or Graham, if there's anything we left unsaid that you'd like to share.
Oh, Howard, I think, it's funny. We alluded to some of these things that might happen, and they're happening. We are lookalike to Thacker, we've been working on this for a couple of years. We're about 6 years behind them in terms of permitting and construction. And it's a great project. It's the highest grade lithium clay deposit in the US. And we do think that as we continue to de-risk this, it will get better known. We've got the PEA out. Let's get the PFS out. The more questions that we can answer to the public market and de-risk this project and show that it does stand alongside the Thacker Passes of the world, I think the value will continue to rise. I mean, it's been a tough slog, but as you mentioned, we attracted Evolution, great partner. We're well funded, and now we just got to get to work.
Sounds good. Great seeing you again, Graham, and keep up the good work.
Okay, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.